Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Marks Remarks, the last one of the semester. Kind of sad. Came a lot faster than I thought, but we had a lot of great guests this year. And so felt like it was only right to end the semester with a team that I've been working with all year. Had a few guys from the men's soccer team on my show earlier in the year. Had a captain, had a senior, had a goalkeeper. And now I thought, let's bring in a new guy. Let's bring in a freshman. Some new perspective on this team, someone that I've gotten to know quite well, especially over the spring since I've been working with the men's soccer team. I'm joined by Jamestown, Rhode Island native, a local guy to Rhode Island. I'm joined by Connor Froberg. Connor, how are we doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Like I said, it's kind of weird. This is the last show of the semester. Everyone's basically moved off campus already, so everyone's basically moved home. So I was like, you know what? I want to get one more show in before I head back home for the summer. And I was like, you know what? It'll be fun. I've had too much fun with you guys this spring, and I've learned a lot about your team and just like the ways that this team has sort of come together and the different personalities and so on. And I was like, you know what? Let's get one more local guy in to get the fans have something for them to think about over the summer, especially considering just the expectations that the team's going to have next year and everything with the new transfers coming in and so on. But I mean, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Appreciate you having me on and looking forward to it.
No, of course. But I mean, so I want to start with how you got into soccer in the first place and how you ended up at URI being a local Rhode Island kid. There's a lot of family involvement, I know, between you and the Rhode Island Rams. But I mean, just take me back to like where it all started, how you fell in love with the game, and just where and when you first started playing.
Yeah, so to be honest, I've been around soccer my entire life. I think I started playing when I was 3 years old. My dad got me started really quick. My uncle's my neighbor, and then I have an older cousin, Jake, who's a senior at URI. So I was kind of always around the game, always playing around the house. Then I started playing just locally in Jamestown when I was like 3 years old. Moved off island to North Kingstown and like South County soccer, and then I really got started up with it with GPS. I don't know if you heard of it, but Global Premier Soccer. It was like very big, good program, and I was on like the Rhode Island team for that. Ended up doing some regional things, and that's kind of when it really picked up, and I started to really like enjoy the game.
I have to imagine starting off that young, your dad and your uncle were probably very much wanting to push you along this soccer path, trying to have you continue in the family legacy of sorts?
No, yeah, my dad, he hasn't really ever said it, but I think it was definitely always one of his dreams just to have me playing here, just to be able to see me play, not only here, but also at North Kingstown High School, because him and my uncle both played there as well. They coached there. So I think that pathway was kind of always in their dreams, and it ended up working out, which I think is really cool.
And so as you're going along this sort of pathway and like sort of following in the footsteps of guys in your family and emulating that in a sense, was that at all ever sort of weird, like thinking about like, oh, my dad's done this, my uncle's done this, like done this exact same sort of path?
I think it kind of just fit. I was always around the game because, so like I said, when they were coaching at NK, they would always take me to those games. I was on the bench sometimes, got to meet some of the guys, and I was always really young for that, so I don't remember too much of that. And then also just taking me to the URI games. We would always watch the games like since a young age. So I think I was around it so much that it just felt kind of normal when I was going through it. And it's cool to kind of look back at it now, not really for the URI part, but for the NK part, just to see how cool that whole progress was.
And in terms of just your progress, everybody has a different point in which that they sort of decide, all right, you know what, like playing soccer in college is feasible, like I want to continue to pursue this. What was the point where you kind of realized that, you know what, like I actually might be good enough to play college soccer? Was it from a young age, or was it at some point where it's like, you know what, all the work that I've done, like it just makes sense?
I was always a really good athlete. I wasn't just soccer. I was playing baseball, basketball, golf, and I think I was always most focused on soccer, but I had those sports in the background. And I think my sophomore going to my junior year, I kind of dropped those other sports. Baseball I dropped before high school. Basketball I played my freshman and sophomore year. And then it was kind of at that time where I was like, all right, I really want to do this. And I always wanted to play college soccer, but it was at that point where I really committed to it. And that's when I really just started focusing completely on soccer.
And I mean, based on just your track record, it sort of shows with that sort of timeline when stuff started to pan out. Because I mean, you played 4 years at NK, and then you made it to the state finals in 2021 and 2022. Yeah. So that around like your junior year, when you really started to hone in, that's when it seems like a lot of the team success really went along with it as well. I mean, how do you feel your game sort of improved, or how much do you feel like it jumped once you decided, all right, this is going to be my sole focus?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I started out with GPS, and then that kind of ended like my freshman year. Going into my sophomore year, I moved to Bayside, which is more of like a local club. Started to play with a lot more local guys, and it was really, I don't know, I think that was a little bit of a jump, and that kind of showed for club level and high school level as well.
Interesting. And you talked about like how you'd always wanted to play college soccer, and obviously you've been in and around the Rhode Island Rams for your entire life. Was it always just like, in your eyes at least, like you were destined to play at Rhode Island, or were there other schools that you were thinking about playing at as well?
Yeah, I mean, URI was always my number one, but the college soccer like recruiting process is so tough. You can't just like, all right, that's my only school and only focus on that one. So my dad was really helpful with that. Like freshman year, we knew that I wanted to play college soccer, and just started sending out emails to all the local schools, and I knew I wanted to stay kind of like Northeast. So I reached out to all those schools, D1, D2, D3, any level, just to kind of like broaden my horizon and get my name out there.
Yeah.
And again, it was always URI, but I kind of had to wait, for that interest to come, for that offer to come, for me to really just focus on URI.
And so then in terms of just the process with URI itself, was it relatively quick? I mean, like you reach out, sending out the emails, but I have to imagine that the family lineage and everything, like they're probably talking to some of the coaching staff as well. And then, I mean, once push came to shove and you were at that sort of point, like between your junior and senior year where they start making these decisions, how quickly was it for you and the coaching staff to sort of come to an agreement, being like, you know what, this is where I should be?
Yeah, so being a local guy, they've seen me my whole life. I mean, I came to their youth camps as a kid. They've always watched me play. So they kind of knew like what kind of player I was. I worked hard. So they liked that part. And then it was just watching me mature throughout high school. I mean, I went to an ID camp like freshman year, sophomore year, and those times are just kind of gaining experience. Like I know I'm not going to get an offer right there, but it's just gaining the experience of being in front of college coaches and showcasing myself. And then I think it was junior year, went to an ID clinic at like the end of June, got an offer then. And then I was kind of just waiting on 2 other schools just to see like what would happen. I knew that I wanted to come here, but I just had to see like if I could get money anywhere else or anything like that. I ended up committing in August. So I was super excited about that. And again, it was just like kind of a surreal moment of like my whole life leading up to this point, like just being around URI so much, and now I'm a part of the team now, which is really cool.
Yeah, and then once you hit your senior year, it seemed like after that commitment, you were able to kind of just have like the pressure take off, because you seem to absolutely explode your senior year. I mean, like 14 goals, 22 assists, and then getting an All-American nod. I mean, just like during that season, having already committed to go play college soccer, did you feel that you were able to just be like your, in a sense, like truest self in terms of on the field?
Yeah, 100%. I think at that point, I basically committed right before our like high school preseason. So I kind of just set some goals for myself. I wanted to win a state championship, wanted to have a super successful season, go perfect season, and I know that we had the team for that. And I also just wanted to kind of leave like my legacy at NK, kind of not just like, okay, we won this many games, but like influencing the younger players to kind of just build a culture at NK, which I think that was definitely one of my big goals there. And just to be able to just focus on high school soccer then and not have to worry about, oh, where am I going to go for college? I already had that. That was definitely a big weight off of my chest. And I still think that was the most fun I've ever had playing soccer. Just like, it was so free. Yeah, a lot of fun there.
And so then, like, after the season concludes, like, you start to see all of these accolades roll in, like the All-New England, All-State, then getting named as an All-American. Just what were your feelings like when you got those acknowledgments, with like a sense of like fulfillment, knowing that, all right, you know what, like that legacy you were just talking about, like I was able to actually do something, like my name will be remembered now once I move on.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to just have that. Not many people at NK have made that like All-American jump. So I think that was really cool. It's really disappointing to not ever get a state championship at NK. We had 4 like very good teams, and I think had a ton of success. So that was definitely disappointing. But yeah, the personal accolades along the way were good.
And so then after your senior year, you're moving on into just sort of the Rhode Island soccer lifestyle, moving into preseason, coming to campus. I mean, was it obviously you wanted to stay local, and like you've been in and around the campus for a long time, but once it actually happened and like you moved on to campus early on to get going in preseason, just how did that sort of feel? Because I mean, like you can always just be like, oh, I've been around campus so long, like I'm so used to it and everything through your family and stuff. But then truly being a part of the program, that must have felt way different than any other time you visited.
No,
campus.
100%. It's not even comparable. It's so different. You know, just being on campus, actually like being in the locker room, going out to practice every day, sometimes twice a day. That was definitely a lot different, and I just enjoyed like every second of it. You know, because I came in, I knew some guys just locally, but didn't know too many people from the team. And when you're just around them the entire day, you know, after practice, during practice, you get to know them so well, and that was definitely, that month or two was a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed that.
Yeah, and so then just like, what were some of your initial experiences during those first couple of months? I mean, like you're obviously still trying to get acclimated to the college game itself, because going from high school to college, like there's a considerable jump there. But I mean, just in terms of like assimilating yourself with the team and really trying to establish yourself as someone who works hard and wants to see this team be successful, just like what was that sort of 2 months like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think teammates made it a lot easier to just get acclimated to it, just because they're so like positive, and you know, even outside of soccer, you know, they're always going to be there for you. Like I think our team is very tight knit, a lot of good guys, so that made it a lot easier. And then just the soccer side of it, it was definitely a huge jump for me. I think I've always thought of myself as a good athlete, and then you get into this college game, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is a lot different. Everybody's super athletic, super technical. So that was tough for me to get into for the first few months, but I think I'm definitely working towards that more in the spring. I was very happy with how the spring went.
Yeah, and so then just like being a part of the team during the fall, not really seeing any action, but still being immersed in that sort of environment, and obviously the team didn't really see much success beyond the regular season this year, but being on the bench, watching your teammates operate and seeing just like what the culture of this program is like, and the tacticalness of what is being put out there, just how did that sort of impact you during your first season, and just like how do you feel that allowed you to perform during the spring?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for the most part, I was in the fall just working super hard, you know, trying to get playing time. Then it got to a point where it's like, all right, I'm probably going to redshirt, and I kind of, obviously still working super hard in practice, but I kind of sat back during the games and thought like, all right, what's my role? And I've always been someone that's around the program, know a lot about it. So you look at a game like PC or something like that, I think that was like really cool just to be around that game and like actually experience it, because I've watched those games my entire life. But being there for that, just to feel like how tense the game is, was definitely really cool. And then I think just the whole fall, being around the team, set me up for the spring. And it felt good to really finally get some minutes there in the actual game.
Yeah, and then you talked about just like some of the guys that you knew coming into it, like local guys from Rhode Island and so on. But who are some of the guys that you like gravitated toward that helped you feel like you belong with the team and everything? Like guys that might have stuck with you during practice, or kind of gave you some pointers as you were going through the motions?
I think a lot of all the center mids in our team definitely helped a lot. Just like being able to look up to them and see like, all right, what are they doing that I can implement in my game? Guys like Max, Kevin, Yvonne, Brett as well. I think he gained a lot of experience, and I was just kind of looking at him, looking at those kind of guys to model my game off of and see what I can do better to get in a lineup or get some minutes in a game.
And so then how does having the local guys, like other Rhode Island guys that you can sort of relate to in that sense, where it's like you guys are home, like you guys are all sort of from the same state, think in similar ways and so on. How is it like having guys like that on the team as well that you're with every single day?
Yeah, I was definitely very lucky to have that. My junior year, so their senior year, I played with Brett, played with Mikey Hofstetter. I've always played against Joey Turco. I've known Kevin just from being around here. And then like this summer for Bayside, like our U23 team, I was playing with Max, Kevin, Brett, Mikey. So I think that's very helpful just to have those guys, and being a rookie, just to be able to look up to them and see what they're doing.
And so then once you moved through the winter and into the spring, what were the conversations like with the coaching staff in terms of like what the expectations were during the spring? Because obviously like the spring season's more of like the formative stuff where you start to experiment more with other guys on the roster to see like, all right, what are some of the guys that didn't really play during the fall? What can they offer? And you start to tweak things tactically and so on. And you saw considerable minutes throughout the spring season. So, I mean, before you got into games, what were some of the conversations with the coaching staff like in terms of what they expected from you and what you were willing to put forth?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the fall, we had our meeting, and it was basically just, the fall happened, that I worked really hard but wanted to see some other things, and they said that in the spring we're going to be able to do that because there was definitely a lot of space for me to play there. I ended up getting a lot of minutes, and they just wanted to see kind of my role in the team and what that was going to be. So I think in the spring I was able to prove that.
And so then during your initial minutes throughout the spring, like you put the jersey on, you start to get out there coming off the bench and so on, and just what were those feeling like when you're able to step out onto the field, both away from home with teams like UConn or at home in front of the Rhodey fans here in Kingston? Just what was that feeling like, being able to put the jersey on and actually play center mid for the Rhode Island Rams?
I think a lot of times it's very hard to come off the bench just because, I mean, if you look at anybody in the college level, most of those guys have never really played on the bench. They're used to playing every minute, starting, everything like that. So I think that was kind of tough for me to adjust to, coming off the bench and everybody's been playing the game and I just come in completely cold. So that's kind of hard. But I look at the first game, BU, they weren't planning on starting me, and then Ivan kind of pulled his hamstring a little bit in warm-up. So G came up to me and told me I was starting. So it was kind of just no time to be nervous. Like I just got straight into the game. And that was kind of a good start to the spring. We ended up losing 2-0, but it was just good to finally get those minutes in and get that experience. And I think throughout the spring I just progressed in just having experience, like not being nervous going into the games and knowing what to do and knowing what my role was.
And then in terms of like the physical aspect of the game, when you actually got onto the field, were you surprised at all at just how different it was? Or did you feel that the work that you had put in during preseason last year and then in training during the fall sort of at least prepared you a little bit for what that was going to be like?
I think in training it definitely prepared me a lot. I think looking at a game, you can be like, oh, wow, that's such a high level. But once you get in there and you're playing and you're running around, you're making tackles, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I can definitely fit in here. And that was good just for my confidence this spring, just to know I can definitely play at this level.
And so now that the spring season has concluded, you've had the meetings with the coaching staff, and we've got this sort of downtime before the preseason starts for the fall. You're obviously looking at the fall with a bit of a different perspective now that you've sort of shown what you can do during the spring and you've already had that fall season where you sat out. What are some of your expectations for yourself moving forward now that you've kind of gotten that feel for how this whole process works, how playing for this team is, and just like now that you've sort of seen like what you're capable of, what are you looking forward to now?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just trying to take it slow and like one by one kind of. I know I have that year of experience now, and I think I've always been a really hard worker. So in this summer, I'm just looking to work super hard, come in shape, be sharp, and just kind of see what happens throughout preseason. I think I would love to just get some minutes next fall in certain games and definitely just show what kind of player I am.
And so then you've got Bayside coming up this summer, right? Are you playing with Brett too?
Yeah, so it's going to be me and Brett and then a few more guys that I used to play with in high school. Should be fun, and I think it's definitely good for just personal development, technical development. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how competitive is that sort of environment? Because I know that it's a lot of the guys, they go out during the summer and play at a number of different levels just to obviously maintain fitness and maintain that soccer shape. But I know a couple of the guys are playing USL too and so on. But I remember you telling me that Bayside, more of like a local club thing. You played against other teams in Rhode Island. Just what's the level of competitiveness with that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, compared to the college level, it's not very comparable. I think it's definitely a step down. But it's good to just stay sharp, stay fit. We do a lot of fitness, do a lot of technical stuff at training. And I think it's the trainings that mainly are just keeping you sharp throughout the summer, just so you're ready for the preseason and hopefully just not coming in hurt. So it's smart. It's good to just not overplay yourself, you know.
And so with the departures of Max and Kevin and just having a much more thin midfield group going into the fall, do you have any goals in mind in terms of like how much you want to contribute? Like, do you feel that, all right, you want to take the opportunity by the scruff of the neck and try and fill in for a guy like Max? Or do you have like sort of any, I guess, goals for the fall on a personal level that you want to achieve now that it seems more attainable with the way that the squad's looking?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you look at our team right now and throughout the spring, there was definitely an opportunity there. There wasn't too many guys. So I think I'm not going to be that first choice guy right now, but I think if I can get that opportunity in the fall and kind of just prove what kind of player I am, that's definitely my goal, and just to get myself some minutes and hopefully prove it.
And so, what have your dad and your uncle been thinking about this? Seeing you participate with the Rams and everything, and just seeing you be a part of this squad. Like, what sort of advice have they given you in terms of just how to manage everything in order to just sort of stay level-headed and stay present?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that just staying present can be tough. Like throughout the fall, not playing, redshirting. My dad was kind of just telling me, just keep working hard, do what you can control, basically. And I think that was definitely helpful, just to have that kind of guidance. Because it can be easy just to be like, oh, I'm not playing, oh, I'm not going to try during this training session or anything like that. But I think it was definitely important just to keep that effort level up.
And so what was it like seeing them play in the alumni game a couple weeks ago? I remember I went out and I was doing photography for that, and it was pouring, but I remember seeing your dad and your uncle going out there, and it was just very interesting seeing that whole alumni group come together and play as if they hadn't been apart for more than a day or so. But just seeing your dad and uncle like participating in that, going out there and showing their stuff, just like knowing that your family has such a deep connection to this university. I mean, just what was that like? Yeah,
it was honestly really funny, and it was fun to watch. I think both of them are very competitive, and it was funny to watch that entire game, like how it played out. It was fun to watch.
And so then just shifting gears more toward like the overall team, I'm more curious as to like, you've seen what this program has been like for over a decade, know what the expectations are like as a fan, as someone who's had family play for the team, and now being a part of that yourself. Obviously, there's a lot of work that can be done with this program in terms of reaching success beyond the regular season, like going deep into the conference championship and making the NCAA tournament. Just having seen what this team is capable of and the new additions that have been brought in the transfer portal, what do you feel are reasonable expectations for this program? Start off with next year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the history of URI, you don't have to look back too far. 2018, 2019, both A-10 championships, went to the NCAA tournament. So those were both very successful teams, and everybody on this current team is aware of that, and they're aware that the past 2 years, we haven't made the playoffs, and that's just not good enough. And I think everybody's just hungry, and we know that the first step is just making the playoffs. I think we have a super talented team, but we finished 9th the past 2 years, and again, we know that that's not good enough. So I think that first step is just making the playoffs and making a run from there, being prepared. Obviously, the end goal is an A-10 championship, regular season championship, make it to the tournament, stuff like that. I think it's important just to start with making the playoffs, especially because we haven't the past 2 years.
And with how really detrimental some of the losses were last year, like you saw like the loss to Bryant, then the loss to Dayton within a span of a week.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you feel that those lessons, that very, very harsh lessons during the fall, do you feel that those lessons have been picked up by the team as a whole, and that has reflected in just sort of like the intensity that the team puts forth during the spring and just sort of the mentality that they have moving forward? Because I feel like that when you have such embarrassing losses of that nature, that can really make or break the trajectory of programs on. It can either sink your ship, or you can use that as be like, all right, we never want to have this happen again, and carry on from there. So how do you feel the team has responded from the disappointment from last year?
Yeah, I mean, you look at those 2 games, it's 10 goals given up in 2 games, didn't score any goals, and that was just like super embarrassing for us, like especially Bryant, in-state rival. We've always had good success against them, been losing 4-0. So yeah, it was definitely embarrassing, and hopefully we learned our lesson from that. And I think, this spring playing Bryant, we were just like, we're not letting this happen again. Like, remember what happened in the fall? We ended up winning, so that was definitely big. And yeah, I hope that we can learn from that throughout in the fall as well.
And so then in terms of just like intensity and how much these individual results matter, when you look at like the spring season, and obviously it's the more developmental part of the year, like you're playing games in order to remain sharp and stay fit. But just from a player perspective, how much do these games matter to you, especially playing a team like Bryant, who's become one of your major rivals year in and year out?
Yeah, I think the spring is really just important just to gain experience and prepare yourself for the fall, because the fall is so tough, like physically, mentally, everything. And I think the spring is good for that, just for development, stuff like that. And then, yeah, we play against UConn, Bryant, so very close, like rival team. So, it's very competitive as well. It's not like, oh, we don't care if we win. Yeah.
And so then just kind of moving away from soccer and just sort of looking at like the broader picture of URI, I'm always curious to see just how athletes become acclimated to just university life in general. And being like we've talked about, being a local guy, like you're obviously not that far from home, your family's right there, but just how were you able to sort of acclimate yourself to university life in general when you first got here?
I think it's tough to, you have so much freedom and you're very busy with soccer, but outside of that, I think you have a lot of freedom. It's tough to stay up in your academics and still have like a kind of a social life. But I think, again, the team is helpful with that. We have older guys that have been through it for a few years, so they know like they can give guidance on what you're doing outside of soccer and how you kind of have to balance your things.
Do you feel that a lot of the support that you've gotten has mainly come from just the guys on the soccer team, or have you branched out at all to the rest of the URI athletic community to try and like make some new connections and sort of like establish some new relationships with people from other teams, whether it's men's or women's?
I think most of it does come from just inside of our team, but we're definitely close with a lot of other teams, hang out with them outside of soccer. So yeah, I definitely made some friendships there and can talk to them about that kind of stuff.
And so then just back sort of on like a personal level, I'm curious as to where do you see your career going here at URI just over the next few years? Because obviously you're still a freshman, you still have yet to truly make the impact that you're hoping for on the field during the actual fall season. But just with your first like probably playing season on the horizon and multiple seasons beyond that to follow up, just what are some of your expectations that you've set out for yourself in terms of your career at URI that you want to achieve at some point?
Yeah, it's tough to kind of see where that's going to go, but I think for me, just working super hard and kind of just creating those chances for myself and taking it from there. Like, I definitely want to, by the end of my career, win an A-10 championship, make the NCAAs, and, just have a big part in that team.
Are there any sort of accolades that your dad or your uncle might have gotten while you were here that you want to try and usurp, or do you want to try and, is there any sort of like rivalry in the family where it's like, all right, like the two of you've had your time, but I want to make sure that I establish myself as maybe a little bit, maybe the most prominent Froberg to play at URI? Yeah,
I honestly don't know too much about like what their personal accolades were, but I know that they were a part of some very good teams and they were a huge part in those teams. So again, just being a part of that and maybe making it further than they did in like the NCAAs or a few more A-10 championships, and then that would definitely be cool.
And then just beyond college in general, do you have aspirations to continue playing soccer down the line, or do you have any sort of other like post-college aspirations or ideas? Because I know it really varies from a lot of people, because it's like you can see a number of athletes who are exceptionally successful and very good at what they do in college, but have no desire to continue on from that. That is, they want to go into their own like actual like field that they've been studying for the past few years and really making an effort to try and stay focused off the field. But I mean,
Yeah.
so do you have any stuff that you want to pursue, or is soccer just the main one?
I think I'm still super young. When I was a young kid, I definitely wanted to play pro, and that was like one of my big goals. Now, I'm not going to take it outside. It's not out of the picture, but it's not like my main goal. I think for me, academics is very important, and I'm interested in like business, finance, that kind of stuff. And then as I'm playing college soccer, if I get any of those opportunities, I definitely take it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just especially considering just how the game's grown, like particularly in New England, you're seeing all of these clubs at the USL level that are giving chances to all of these guys coming fresh out of college. I mean, like Rhode Island FC just started. Like that's going to be super interesting. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see guys from this team once they decide to move on that might take a shot at a club like that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just staying open-minded to everything, not closing any doors, because you never know what's going to happen. So yeah.
And so then you mentioned it earlier, and I was thinking about this for the past few minutes. Just like you talked about how the coaches had known you for years, obviously because of just your relationship with the university and having gone to the ID clinics and so on. And just how has your relationship with like Coach G and Coach Bassett grown since you had originally committed to come play here, and then throughout the past few months to a year where you've been a part of the program, you've been training with them, you've been with them every day? Just how has your relationship with them evolved?
Yeah, so again, I've always been around them throughout my childhood, but obviously being on the team, coming out to training every day, talking to those guys, it's definitely grown from there, and it's been good to just get to know the coaches a lot better. And
so then just in terms of just coaches throughout your career going through soccer, I mean, just like who would you say are some of the coaches that have really impacted you the most and set you on this trajectory to go play college soccer?
I mean, for me, it's not very traditional, but since I was 3 years old, basically until my senior year of high school, my dad was my club coach. So,
really?
Yeah. So that was obviously, I don't know. It's very untraditional. Not many people are like that, but I think he was definitely a huge part of that, and it was nice to have him as my coach and kind of just someone to look up to.
And so, I mean, your uncle was probably in and around that sort of thing as well, coming in as assistant. Was there ever any times where your dad was giving you pointers and your uncle was like, don't listen to your dad. Like, let's try and do this.
No, honestly, no, not at all.
Oh, really?
No, because he was never my uncle was never one of my club coaches. He was around me playing soccer, but my dad was always my coach.
Interesting. Well, I mean, just in terms of like, I'm curious for this season. I want to hear some numbers from you, just based off of the past like 2 years and so on, because I think the last 2 years the program's finished ninth, haven't made the Atlantic 10 tournament. I mean, just based off of what you've seen this spring and like the talent that the transfers were able to bring in, like Keegan Walker and Carroll, what do you think is the ceiling for this program in 2024? Do you feel like finishing top 3, top 4 is well within reach, or do you feel that a more realistic thing would be to finish sort of like that 6 to 8 range in order to make the playoffs and move on? Or just like from what you've seen and from what the guys are feeling like, what do you think a reasonable expectation would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sky is the limit. I think we lost a lot of guys, but we also have some experience in the team. And then from what I've heard, we're going to bring in some guys, some transfers or some international guys that should make a big impact on the team. So, I mean, we don't know how that's going to unfold, but I think definitely like top 3, even top 1, that would be definitely the ceiling for this team.
Has there been any word on like high school recruits coming in from New England and so on? Have you had the chance to speak with any recruits that have come in and have done like sort of walkthroughs with you guys?
Yeah, we've had a few overnight visits for guys that are staying or coming in next year. Bryant was our last game. We had like pregame meal with those guys, and they came and watched the game. So I think we have a few local guys that are going to come in. So I'm excited for that as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of other things, but I feel like that we've sort of just covered all of what there is to talk about with this program right now, because I mean, there's been so much change, and there's been so much just sort of like the expectations have gone up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
But I feel like that there's so much that's unknown with this program, because it's like you're seeing a lot of the notable guys like captains like Kevin and Max leaving, graduating. So there's almost as if like a new guard coming in, and you're a big part of that. It's a very young program, a very hungry program that's getting filled with a lot of experience from other universities that knows what they have to do. I feel like that considering the sheer amount of fans that have started to really come in and fill the soccer complex over the past few years, I mean, like even the Providence game, I think, had 2,500 fans crazy. Or something like that. Yeah. But it goes to show just truly how much this program has really grown in notoriety here at URI. And I feel like that there's going to be a lot of interest surrounding you guys, especially when it comes to the fall. I'm very excited to be working with you guys and working with you guys in the fall. It's going to be super fun.
It's going to be a fun time. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity for everybody on the team. We're going to have some leaders step up, a lot of guys step up, but I think that's definitely in reach, and it'll definitely happen. So.
You feel like you're one of those guys that is ready to step up to the plate to lead?
I mean, throughout my entire soccer career, I've always been captain, leader, and in practices, I've stepped up. So, I mean, you never know. Yeah, I definitely try to do that.
Love it. Well, Connor, I appreciate this. I feel like this is a nice way to round off just sort of this almost like soccer mini-series I've done on the podcast. I've had all these different perspectives on how this program has grown, and to have someone who's been in and around the program for years that has really seen all the ups and downs, to then become a part of it and to being one of those guys that's putting in the work to really restore this program to the glory that it deserves is cool, and I'm very happy that I was able to sort of round this off with you today. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun.
Of course. And to everybody listening at home, I appreciate you all listening this entire semester. This has been great. I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to have guests like Connor and others come on and share their experiences in WRIU. And this is the last podcast for the semester, so not sure what we'll be doing over the summer. Periodically, we may have some guests come in throughout, but so just stay tuned. Follow all the socials, Marks Remarks Pod on Instagram and on X, and just stay up to date with everything. And we'll be back in probably August when I come back to work with the men's soccer team. Preseason, we'll be back. Maybe we'll have one of the new captains come on or something like that, or get maybe a couple more of the younger freshmen to come on and join the program. But everybody, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all back next season.